Good evening. Tensions over North Korea's nuclear program increased dramatically today after it carried out its sixth and most powerful nuclear test to date. It claimed to have detonated a hydrogen bomb capable of being mounted on an intercontinental missile. In the last couple of hours, the US Defense Secretary has said a threat to the United States will be met with a massive military response. Theresa May has called for urgent new sanctions to be agreed at the UN. The blast detected near the Pyongyang underground test site in northwestern North Korea is said by experts to have had more destructive power than the bombs dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki at the end of World War II. We'll report from Tokyo and from Beijing in a moment. But first, Yogita Limai in Seoul.
It was a perfect success, the newsreader declared, as she announced North Korea was close to achieving its nuclear goals. The country says it's detonated a hydrogen bomb small enough to be fitted to an intercontinental missile. This is Kim Jong-un inspecting what North Korea claims is such a device. If true, it would mean that Pyongyang is now capable of launching a nuclear attack on cities in the United States. This unprecedented threat prompted President Trump to say South Korea's talk of appeasement with North Korea will not work. They only understand one thing, he declared.
Any threat to the United States or its territories, including Guam, or our allies, will be met with a massive military response, a response both effective and overwhelming.
It's a strong message to South Korea's president, who for months has said talking to North Korea was a solution. Today he expressed outrage and disappointment.
North Korea has made an absurd tactical mistake by committing a series of provocations such as launching ICBM missiles and conducting a nuclear test, which has heightened tensions on the peninsula and is threatening world peace. It will isolate them further.
South Korea is most worried because it has the most to lose. And that's why even though military measures like these bombing drills are held in the face of the threat from North Korea, it's hard to see what further action can be taken.
It's certainly our view that none of the military options are good. The distance between North Korea and Seoul is very, very small. They could basically vaporize large parts of the South Korean population, even with conventional weapons.
Here in Seoul, a city that's home to tens of millions of people, we're only about 50 kilometers from the border with North Korea. And at any given time, a mass of weapons is pointed in this direction. And that's why rather than take a military route, the international community has been trying to put economic pressure on Pyongyang. But that isn't working either. And the impact of every move Kim Jong-un makes is felt not just in the Korean peninsula, but also across the sea in Japan.
The pod under the belly of this Japanese Air Force jet can sniff the air for radiation. This afternoon it roared off towards North Korea to do just that. It's less than a week since North Korea fired this missile across Japan. For Prime Minister Abe, this is becoming an unwelcome routine.
Together with the US, South Korea, China and Russia, Japan will take determined action against North Korea.
North Korea may now have tested a nuclear device that is small enough to put on top of a ballistic missile that could be fired at the United States. And for the government here in Japan, that is very disturbing because it raises a very troubling question. In future, will the United States be willing to risk one of its own cities, say for example Denver, in order to protect Seoul and Tokyo?
This afternoon, the US ambassador rushed to see Japan's foreign minister to reassure him.
No action undertaken by the North Koreans will in any way deter our commitment.
Japan and the US may have the military might to deter North Korea, but they have few other levers to pressure Pyongyang. Only one country does, and that is China.
China was quite literally shaken by the blast. North Korea's nuclear test site is only 60 miles from the border. It will have sent a diplomatic jolt too, coming just before President Xi Jinping opened this international summit. Although he made no direct reference, he warned of the challenges to world peace. On state TV, the message was more blunt, with an official statement strongly condemning the test. There can be little doubt that the government here in Beijing is rattled. Once again, it has had to order emergency radiation monitoring along the border. But despite the frustration, as always, it may be reluctant to punish North Korea too hard. China has recently been stopping cargoes of coal and seafood in line with toughened UN sanctions. But its biggest fear is not nuclear weapons. It's the chaos that would come with the economic collapse of the impoverished state shrouded in darkness on the other side of this river. John Sudworth, BBC News, Beijing.
Well, after reaction there from China, Japan and South Korea, I'm joined in the studio by our North America editor, John Sopel. What's the US reaction been like, John?